Welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 391 for Monday, March 2nd, 2026. This is a podcast all about Minecraft, available across all major podcast platforms, including a video version on YouTube and Spotify, potentially coming soon to other platforms as well. Everyone's getting into video these days. My name is Jonny, but the internet knows me as Pixel Riffs, and joining me also into video is Joel Duggan. Hi, Joel.
I am in video most of the time these days, which is weird to say as a podcaster of many years. It's a new development for me, relatively speaking. But talking about developments, we were talking in the render distance, which is the pre-show, the extended version of the podcast, about Light and Magic, which is a documentary on Disney Plus about industrial light and magic and all the behind the scenes and the special effects and stuff that go into your favorite movies like Star Wars and Jurassic Park and Back to the Future and all kinds of really cool stuff. So if you want to hear more about that, about some model making, about some of the things that might inspire your D&D tabletop games, then check out the render distance. You can go to the Spawn Chunks on Patreon. If you support the show, you get access to that, which is something we do every single week. You also get access to things like the monthly Minecraft Hangout. We just had our February Hangout on Saturday. That's now published on the Patreon page for patrons, and that's where Jonny and I talk with members of the community about what they've been building in Minecraft over the last month. We do that once a month, of course. And we also have quarterly Hangouts that come up once a quarter where we talk about the behind the scenes of our podcast, what makes the podcast tick, the downloads, the YouTubes, all the kind of stuff. If you're interested in that, check out patreon.com/thespawnchunks.
We are staying behind the scenes, at least as far as the regular Minecraft releases go, by taking a quick check-in on this week's Snapshot this week on the show, and then we're going to have a discussion about Minecraft bugs. Not the technical kind, but the creepy, crawly kind.
So what have you been up to in Minecraft this week, my friend?
Surprising no one, I am still in the beacon mine. The beacon mine has now hit deep slate layers on the 4th area I'm digging out, and I wish it was the last, but I still have the 5th area to do since one of them ended up being the drowned farm chunk. So I am, just slowly hacking my way through this. It's going to probably be moss mining time fairly soon, because now we're getting into that point where the deep slate is roughly 50% of the material I'm digging, and it slows all the way down. But I'm also quite happy knowing that I'm gathering this all with a Silk Touch pickaxe now that I know that the Stonecutter in the 26.1 release is going to be able to stone cut all of the Silk Touch deep slates, so I'm not too worried about that these days. I was thinking about prioritizing zombifying and curing villagers because I was using my trading hall a lot to mend my tools on this dig, and now I've got this drowned farm. It's actually been okay. It's not quite as fast, I think, as even including the travel time going back to my trading hall and trading with a bunch of villagers and getting like redstone and stuff for that. But as a source of XP for fixing tools, I could do worse. So that's been pretty helpful so far, and it's now gathered enough stacks of copper ingots to make about 2 stacks of fresh copper blocks. So the farm itself, while it's not outputting tons and tons of copper, it is at least having some output, not to mention Nautilus shells and glow ink and that kind of stuff coming through as well. So that's all going well on the survival guide. I haven't been back on misadventures since I built the pirate ship guild hall for the pirate crew that I'm now a part of, because other commitments this week have kind of kept me away from it. I've been doing all of the prep work for Gigs D&D that happened on Friday, but my shipmates have been decorating the decks, so I think Infinite Drift and maybe a couple of the other folks who are part of the same guild have been in there and outfitting the pirate ship with like a map table and a cartography table on the side and like bookshelves and things that make it feel a little bit more like a lived-in space. There was also apparently a stream on Friday night where there was a lot of guild versus guild PvP, where a bounty system has been set up, and we earn points for taking out the guild leaders who are chosen for basically being the target that time. So apparently a lot of that has happened, and since we have gravestones as a mod on this server, we're probably building up a lot of those around the area of our guild house. But yeah, it's been a bit of a mixed week for me. I've obviously not had as much time to play Minecraft as I typically would, but I'm making progress on the beacon mine, and that feels good to me.
It's one of those things when you're dealing with a big project like this that, there's always that point in the middle where something slows you down, whether it's the monotony of it, whether it's the material change into deep slate. That's something I ran into last week or the week before. But it's nice when you've got other things around that you can use to take a break. So for me, it's trading with villagers for quartz, which I'm using all over the place. So I'm kind of like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm repairing my material, but my tools, but I'm also gathering quartz that I will eventually be using in other parts of the build. And with the drowned farm, like, it's nice that you've got like the different drops. You've got the ink sacs, you've got the nautilus shells, you've got the copper, obviously, but then you're repairing your tools. So it's kind of a nice break in that way. And I hear you on the slower repair for mob farms, because I stopped going to the gold farm on the server to repair my tools because of the distance, even though it's not that far.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot longer. Like trading with villagers is really, I would say, almost OP for repairing stuff. Like I can repair a netherite pickaxe that's, well, we'll say 75% down. Like, you know, you've only got 25% left. It's definitely in the yellow. And with one round of trading through 16 villagers, so 12 villagers. So it's 6 for trading iron for emeralds, and then another 6 for trading quartz back to me, and that repairs the pickaxe. Like that's and that takes a minute and a half. Like it feels tedious because it's a lot of menu hopping, but it's really effective. And so I can see even, you know, installing some villagers nearby temporarily in the dig would maybe even be helpful to try and get, you know, more repair faster. But I mean, obviously you've got the down farm going there as well. Like when you switch to your moss mining, do you find that you now have to deal with like what to do with all of that moss? Like, are you going to be composting it? What's the plan? Since you're using the silk touch for now, but like eventually you're not going to have the same output from your mining that you do now.
Yeah, the moss all gets composted because then that produces bone meal that I can use to spread it further. And overall, I break even, even make a little bit more on bone meal, so it's really not too bad. But I have a couple of allays running around after me, picking up the moss blocks, and then I just pick up the other like odds and ends of like carpet and wheat seeds and that kind of stuff. And yeah, that all goes into a composter because that's generating passive bone meal in the background. I get a couple of bone blocks extra out of it each time, and without that, I would have to generate a lot of bone meal somewhere else in order to cover this area in moss, because it's about 110 by 110 square, and just doing one layer of that, converting it all to moss, takes a lot of bone meal. So yeah, I've kind of got that down to a science at this stage, having done it for a couple of the other areas that I've dug out. I think it's the more effective method, even though when I'm doing the stone layers, I can dig 2 at a time with an efficiency beacon, haste beacon and efficiency pickaxe rather, and it feels slower and faster doing the moss mining portion because you can only do 1 layer at a time, but it just eliminates all of the deep slate, which would take way longer. So yeah, I'm still roughly getting 2 layers done per stream at that point, like a 3-hour stream. So hopefully it shouldn't take too much longer for this one. And then I'm finally onto the last area of the dig, and then I can start building the giant copper aging machine that I've been talking about for the last few months now, it feels like.
It's always worth it in the end, but we were talking a little bit pre-show about like the slog that happens in these larger projects and the little bit of a lull that I think it's good to showcase. Like I think it's good to have streams where you can hang out with your community and talk about this kind of stuff, because so much of this kind of thing in survival Minecraft gets glazed over in time-lapse videos or cuts where, like, you know, people that have experience like you and I will watch, you know, some content and go like, that was 5 hours of work between that cut and the next cut. Like, you know, that's a huge change to this area, whether it's, you know, clearing out a perimeter or, you know, a cut to a different level, or like, oh, hey, I finished my 5th chamber of my giant copper aging machine facility. And it's like, well, that was, you know, 2 weeks of 3-hour streams, you know, like it's nice to know when that kind of stuff is happening, because I think it opens less experienced players' eyes to like the kind of commitment that happens for this kind of work, and not to necessarily rush through it. Like the idea, I think, is that if this was all easy, then the end build would not be nearly as rewarding as it is to have done it by hand, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a little overcommitment, I think, from my perspective, but I'm still going to be really happy once it's done. And I think if I was doing smaller projects in between each of these large digging sessions, I feel like I would get a lot less of it done. I feel like I would just almost lose patience with the grind of it. But like once I can just get stuck into a grind like this, it's nice to have the momentum and sort of see it through to the finish line. So that's with me, at least. That's all I've got for Minecraft Survival Guide this week. How about you? What's new on the Citadel?
So I mean, I'm dealing with something similar, but instead of a giant hole that I'm digging, I'm building something giant that is, probably the same size as your holes, just in the opposite direction.
Mm.
But the command center needs all of the wings filled in, and I've been holding off on some of them because I didn't have a plan. But I thought, these top observation decks are probably going to be pretty similar in terms of their structure. I might put something different as far as the kiosks or the inside details might be different, but the overall roof and windows and bulkhead structure is probably going to be the same. I've done one. I'm happy with one. That means I can just copy the other, which is going to take a third of the time. It's a lot of walking back and forth and counting blocks and getting things to look right, but it means that I'm not designing something from scratch this time. I'm just kind of copying things over. So I was spending my streams this week taking designs from the North Wing and mirroring them over to the East Wing, and quickly throwing in some designs and some of the panels. I do want to revisit these areas with maybe some map art or something that really will add in some of the custom details, but I don't want to commit to that just yet because I don't know where I'm going to do it. If I do it in the end, I don't want to lose it in case there's some sort of update that comes in the next year. Because I'm also looking at this as like a long-term project, so I can always return to this area and fix things up. So that's what I've been doing on the upper levels. I'm also making some slight design changes for speed. Maybe thinking like, what? I don't really love the way that I did the floor in the last one. Maybe I'll change the way that I do the floor in this one a little bit, hoping for maybe some happy accidents. I will have to do this another 2 times around the other south and west wings. So if I see something where like, what? I really liked what I did in that east wing, I can easily go back and change it. And I'd rather experiment 3 times and pick one I like than build the exact same thing 3 times and then decide I have to change it and then change all 3. So it's a fun way with symmetrical builds to kind of make progress, but also iterate a little bit and see what you like. So I've been experimenting with that kind of stuff. And that's really as far as I got. I'm thinking about some of the uses for the other second level for more trading hall, because I'm going through quartz like crazy. And I'm also going through a lot of glass. And I have a lot of sand, but I usually have to stop and wait to smelt the sand because I have not built a big smelter. And so a smelter is a building project that I want to add in the area. And I'm just debating, like, do I want to stop now and add it because I might lose the momentum, as you were saying, on the command center? Or do I want to add a villager trading hall in the next wing with librarians, maybe for a journeyman glass trade? And that will, because I'm really using the glass to like make windows and skylights and lights. I'm not making floors of glass or anything like that yet. And so I'm thinking that there's going to be a lot of glass that I use in the outside, like maybe on the ground or maybe in like some sort of like bottom lit landscaping. And if I do that, I'm going to need a lot more glass. So I need to figure out how I'm going to do that. And I feel like that's the point where I'll need like a proper smelter, because I think that gathering sand with like a beacon and some speed potions and a shovel is going to be faster than trading for glass overall with Villagers Plus, because when I get it all home, I can then put it in a giant smelter and then go do something else. Whereas I can't go do something else when I'm trading with villagers. And even just 2 rounds of trading with my masons that I have now, yes, I get 2 stacks and 16 for quartz, which is great, but that time just feels so monotonous. Like it's just like menu click, and repeat. So I feel like there'd be some more things, I guess right in line with what you're talking about with digging. Like when you get low on terracotta or you get low on sand and you have to go collect some, it's an opportunity to do that like live on stream, show how it's done, what's the most efficient way to do it, hang out with your chat a little bit. So those are the kind of things I'm trying to balance with. Like when I need a lot of stuff, I should go gather it. When I need 2 stacks of stuff right now that would take too long to mine for what I need, the villager trading route seems to be the best way to go.
Yeah, I've definitely had a good set of results with like villager trading for now for like what I've needed, but yeah, there's definitely some points at which you need to kind of upscale things. And while I tend to I tend to keep sand in bulk for stuff like TNT, I can see like if you're not that keen on large blasting projects like searching for a ton of netherite and that kind of thing, then yeah, like that cuts down on the amount of stuff you'd need to use glass for, and it's all abundantly there and ready to be smelted. So yeah, not a bad use for it, all things considered. And I think these screenshots really show that you mentioned pretty early on in this project that one of your design inspirations was the style of Imperial stuff in Star Wars,
yes.
right? And I think that's really coming through at this point, mostly in like the color
thanks.
palette. You've got like a lot of black and white stuff here is really high contrast, but like the way it's shaped and designed feels very deliberate. And I like more than anything like the stuff that you've laid into the floor, where there's clearly like, you know, power conduits or pipes of some kind going through, and then the uplighting of everything works really effectively for this as like a production design kind of style. And so yeah, kind of going back to what we were talking about in the render distance with like the production design and all of the miniatures and stuff that they were making for these different models, like it's clear that some of that has been an influence on this with how like muted the color palette is, but in a way that feels very kind of deliberate and stylized rather than just like bland, you know.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. And the lighting and the uplighting is part design, but also part necessity, because I'm using cyan terracotta and gray concrete in a lot of this, the screenshots this week, as well as polished deep slate. And so when you have a room that's 10 to 12 blocks high, the light from the ceiling barely hits the floor the way that light works in Minecraft. So
Yeah.
you have to have both ceiling lights so your ceiling isn't a black void, you know, and also you have to have some track lighting and floor lighting. Otherwise, your floor is just going to be a black void and you're not going to see all the details. And so that it was as much necessity as it was design. But I like the sunken floor stuff as well. Like I really like the contrast of having these power conduits. And the one thing that I wish I could do would be to have more blinking, like have more strobing lights and things like that. But the only light sources that you can do that with in Minecraft don't really fit the aesthetic. They're very warm. You've got copper bulbs and redstone lanterns or redstone lamps, and like that's kind of it really. And while I do have the space under the floor to do some redstone like that, it's just not quite the same effect. Even with some stained glass over top of them, you can't really glaze their color to be non-brown. It just always comes up as some shade of brown. So I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to work on that just yet. I need to come up with something, because I do want the main power core to strobe and have a light effect, and I don't quite yet know how I'm going to handle that. I think I might have to work into some warmer colors into the deeper core, but we'll have to cross that bridge when I come to it.
For sure. We're going to move on to talking about the snapshot this week, because Minecraft Java Edition 26.1 Snapshot 10 has just been released earlier this week. Changes in 26.1 Snapshot 10 include fixing pixel gaps in the snifflet texture and the baby strider not having its bristles properly animated. Striders also now correctly inherit the warmth of the strider they are standing on, which matches behavior on Bedrock Edition. They have reduced the head size of baby zombies, baby husks, and baby drowned. The golden dandelion now has different particles depending on if it's used to start or stop aging. When aging is stopped, the green particles will move downwards, while when aging is started again, the green particles move upwards. Small armor stands now correctly display adult armor by scaling it down instead of using the smaller armor. And there are some minor UI changes, mostly to the IME, which I learned this week is for Input Method Editor. That's what that stands for. Technical changes in 26.1 Snapshot 10 include the datapack version now being 99.3, which adds support for the new golden dandelion particles, and the resource pack version now being 82, which updates head textures for the baby zombie, husk, and drowned. Some fixed bugs of note in 26.1 Snapshot 10. There being no cross-platform CJK IME support has now been resolved. That you can now use tridents enchanted with Riptide while riding entities. That seems like a more recent bug that's been fixed. Rabbits receiving damage if they jump with a block above them. The riding positions and leg movements of baby zombies, husks, drowned, piglins, zombified piglins, and zombie villagers were offset, which caused some visual glitches. Armor now appearing incorrectly on small armor stands, and changing game rules from the world creation screen having no effect, along with, this was my favorite one, farmers now selling 4 cookies instead of 18. Thankfully, that has been fixed for all of the people buying Girl Scout cookies from their local neighborhood farmers. For the full list of bug fixes, you can check out the Minecraft.net changelog. That's linked in our show notes this week at thespawnchunks.com.
I can't remember what mint version of Girl Guide cookies is big in the States, but there's always one that people rave about whenever it comes around. And I'm not privy to it because we have Girl Guide cookies in Canada, not Girl Scout cookies, and they're different. They're totally different cookies. It's a different manufacturer, so I've never had those. And I've heard that the Canadian cookies are better, but I don't want to start a cookie war.
No, nobody wants to start a cookie war, not in today's climate.
No, not with the price of chocolate chips right now. It just
absolutely.
And there's no bananas in cookies, so there we go. I mean, we're getting close, obviously. Like, there's really not a lot going on in the snapshots now. They're kind of like crossing the T's and dotting the I's as far as moving, mounted baby mobs around and the particles on the golden dandelion. I mean, I think it's good that they have an indication. I think it's really subtle. I don't, if you didn't read this article, I don't know that you're going to, one, notice, and two, realize what they do. Like, what do they indicate? Like, it's really hard to figure that out. But at the same time, I don't know what else you would do to indicate that to the player other than having their memory, of like, did I use a golden dandelion on this one or not? Like, I think there might be some changes now that there are going to be craftable name tags. I feel like players, especially if you're keeping something young as a baby animal, there's also a good chance you're going to name it. And so it might be better to just like, well, if you've hit it with a golden dandelion, also name the mob, and then that you've done it. Like that. The named mobs are the ones that you won't grow up. That could be a good way to do it too.
Yeah. We didn't cover it in the newsread this week, but we've been following a little bit of the Bedrock changes as well through some folks who are Bedrock players in our Discord kind of catching us up. And it seems like name tags are now being phased out of librarian villagers' trades on Bedrock Edition, and they were a weird exception because they were the only like master level trade, or they were the only like single item that appeared as the final trade in a villager's trades on Bedrock. It's structured a little bit differently to the way Java Edition works, but those are now going away because name tags are craftable, so it'll be interesting to see if maybe next week Java gets updated for parity with that and they remove the name tag trade from librarians. I suppose with the way trades are structured on Java, though, they all have that master level trade, so I'm kind of curious if that means we'd be getting a different librarian trade, or if they just decide not to do it because of the way Java is structured, there not being that exception the way there was for librarians on Bedrock Edition. The other thing I'm curious about is if we have a date for Minecraft Live yet. I don't think we do, but I feel like it should be coming maybe later this month, or perhaps beginning of April. And now that it's like twice annually, they don't seem to be interested in hyping it up like way beforehand like they used to with the previous Minecraft Live announcements. But now that it's like a pre-recorded show, they don't seem to feel the need to build a ton of hype for it. I'm just kind of curious if we will end up with a Minecraft Live announcement this week or perhaps the next.
I was just looking it up, and March 22nd, 2025 was the Minecraft Live for the spring event last year. So the way that the news flows, it could be tomorrow when we get an announcement, right after we finish recording the show. For when the Minecraft Live might be happening soon. And as I mentioned, it feels like we're getting to the end of the snapshots. I think a really telltale sign will be the switch to pre-releases and a switch to just Tuesdays when we get more snapshots. But usually the pattern has been at the Minecraft Live event, they give the current drop in development a name, and they also announce a date that it's coming. Like, hey, we're doing this Minecraft Live on a Saturday, and this drop is coming out on this coming Tuesday, or Tuesday, a week and a half later, whatever date they decide. So they usually get them in pretty good shape before that, because then they want to make sure that they hit that deadline when they announce it, as well as obviously talking about what the next snapshot cycle is going to be. So I would not be surprised if we get Minecraft Live information soon, like you said, within the next week or two.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed in the meantime about all of the baby animals in this drop is that they have been a heavy focus of Minecraft's social media posts lately. There's a lot of, I think the baby chick is basically the main star of the show at this point, and I think this is sort of capitalizing on the internet's general enthusiasm for cute animals, but there's like a lot of just screenshots of the baby chick with like fairly simple captions, like there's one where it's just like flying in the air and it just says I'm a head out or something like that. It's like the standard kind of like meme format applied to some of these Minecraft mobs. So yeah, I think they're trying to drum up a little bit of enthusiasm and interest just through like the broader social media posts. But yeah, personally, I'm most excited to see just what they've been working on behind the scenes and what's coming up next.
Same, especially because the drop right now feels a little bit light on the game content. I know there's a lot of bug fixing and there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and hopefully that's laying the ground for something a little bit more involved in the next drop. And I think what's interesting is that, I mean, like, I don't think either one of us could have really predicted baby mobs as how we were going to be spending most of our time in the first couple months of 2026. But I really don't know what to expect next. And I think that's one thing that's interesting about the cadence, the new cadence of these drops. I shouldn't say one thing. It's one of many things that are interesting about them, but it's something that I've noticed is that I find it difficult to predict. Whereas before, the bigger swings, you could sort of feel what Minecraft would need because it has been a year or longer since there'd been an update, and you can kind of feel through the community and the zeitgeist of the game like what the game might need. But with these drops, like, it's really hard to predict because they don't seem to be taking big swings, and that's what players seem to be talking about. And when you say, hey, what do you want to change about Minecraft, people usually say something larger. And so when they have these smaller updates, like, I'm not thinking about the game in a way where, like, what are the small things about Minecraft I would change? Like, usually there's big things that I would like to change, not small things. So we'll have to see what's coming. It's going to be interesting.
Yes. For now, we're going to move on into chunk mail for the week. If you'd like to email the show, the email address is spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. We like to read a couple of emails every week on the show. We just got the one today, but we also have a chunk mail dispenser coming up, usually the third show of each month, where we take a focus on community emails. So get them in. The inbox is waiting. If you can keep your emails short and on point, of course, it really helps us include them in the show more easily. And let us know if you're a patron, because sometimes we read a bonus one in the render distance for our patrons as well. Joel is going to read this email today.
This one comes in from David, not to be confused with a giant hole in the ground being dug by Johnny. Hey, Pix and Joel, last week's update to the stonecutter made me wonder about other possible functions for it. What if we were able to cut wood variations of slabs and stairs from planks? It could also cut fences as a counterpart to stone walls. While it is called the stonecutter, it already deviates from this name by cutting copper. It seems logical that a blade capable of cutting stone and metal would also be able to cut wood. What do you think? Are there any other aspects of Minecraft you think should be similarly updated? Thanks. David was pricked to death by splinters flying off of his stonecutter as he cut pale oak stairs.
You got to look out for the pale oak, especially. Sometimes it does come alive and try to kill you. This is honestly a pretty standard idea, a pretty like community sought after thing, because after we got a decent ratio for stone blocks to stairs, I think a lot of people went, well, now the wood ratio feels off. Now why am I investing 6 planks of wood to make 4 stairs when I could be getting 1-to-1 of a different material? So I think a lot of people really went after this idea, and considering some of the little quality of life changes they're making to features recently, I mean, even the fact that the stonecutter can now make silk touch deep slate into cobbled deep slate, I see them maybe doing something like this in future. It feels like a natural extension of what the stonecutter already does.
We actually had a data pack on the Citadel that allows for this cutting of all the wood types, including planks and logs and bark blocks like wood blocks, as well as the hyphae blocks into the counterparts of stairs and slabs and fences and trapdoors and all that kind of stuff. And it was fantastic. And the only ratio that we kind of tweaked a little bit was trapdoors. We got more trapdoors per, I think it was 2 trapdoors out of 1 log, rather than what would have been like less than 1 or something if you did the math on it. So the rest of the ratios were, as you said, like very vanilla focused. Like 1 plank got you 1 stair, you lost a quarter of the material, but it was a better ratio than going to the crafter. And I really liked it. I thought it made a lot of sense. It was better than drawing the crafting recipe. Like, I just liked dropping the material in, clicking the thing that I wanted, and getting the thing out. I thought that was really, really good. There are lots of similar data packs that you can actually get on modrinth.com. I'll have a link in the show notes. And if it's something that you like, then you can try it out and see if the data pack that you've downloaded has the right ratios, whether you can tweak the ratios. What happened with mine was I think they changed the way that data packs were working. And so the data pack that I had used, the crafting destruction website to make myself and download all the files had changed. And so I would have had to remake, even with a WYSIWYG editor, to do every single component and every single output for all the wood blocks in Minecraft. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
And it's tedious. It's not hard, but it's not exciting either. And then I finished West Hill and moved to the sci-fi area where I'm not using wood hardly at all. And if
Right.
I am, it's fine to just craft it in the regular crafting table. So the motivation for me to get the data pack back up and running behind the scenes is next to zero. But there are websites out there like the Crafting Destruction, which I'll also try to grab a link for, that allow you to make these kind of recipe adjustments very easily without having to run like a mod loader or anything like that. So check them out. It's a good way to go. I really would like to see the stone cutter, especially now that they pointed out that you can cut copper on it. I think it's a great way to introduce something like iron stairs and iron slabs. I think that would be fantastic to use the stone cutter for. What about using the stone cutter to cut glass into glass slabs and glass stairs? Something that I think players would really enjoy to have in the game. I think that would really add some use to the stone cutter. As far as other things from David's question, the only thing that stuck in my mind is anvils. I think anvils should either last longer or just not break at all. It's an end game problem. It's like early on, I can understand the progression and like it's a privilege to get an anvil. You have to collect so much iron and blah blah blah. But I have all kinds of iron now on the server, and so breaking and replacing an anvil is more of like now I got to go into my ender chest and get blocks and build another one, and just they don't stack, so you can't just have a stack around, and I find it really tedious. And I'm breaking it because I'm just renaming a lot of stuff. I'm using the shulker box labels mod, and in a good way that mod uses the anvil, uses an experience point from your hotbar to then craft these things and label your shulkers. So there is a price for it. It's not just a free thing, but I'm breaking anvils all the time now. It's really annoying to replace them. So I think for what they are, I think they should have at least a larger durability, if not no durability at all.
Especially with name tags being craftable soon, I think people are going to be using anvils a lot more, so I imagine a lot of people are going to be running into the same problem. And yeah, I can't really think of a ton of stuff to cover the second question in the email, like the other aspects to be similarly updated. As far as villager workstations go, there's some stuff like the Cauldron has a few more things it can do on Bedrock Edition versus Java. I'd like parity in that respect because they can dye water in cauldrons in fun ways that makes for interesting opportunities for like pixel art or set dressing in certain situations. And then like the brewing stand needs a recipe book. We've talked about that a little bit before on the show as well. Mostly though, I think with the stone cutter, I'm trying to think if there's a better name for it if it's going to cut more than just stone, which as David pointed out in the email, it does already. Like circular saw feels a little bit odd for the block game, even though that's more or less what it looks like. Like angle grinder or something like that doesn't quite fit because it's not used in quite the same way. I was thinking maybe cutting bench, or because I tend to think of the villager as stonemasons, but they really are just called masons. And so I wonder if the stone cutter should just be called the cutter. It seems like a simplification of it, but then if it's cutting a variety of things, then maybe the simpler idea is the better one. But yeah, I can see Mojang doing this further down the line. Maybe it's not like high on their priority list. And I'm curious if behind the scenes they think maybe it's nice to sort of go through the struggle of crafting with all of the different crafting recipes and having like the gameplay of that be part of the experience, and then have the relief of the stone cutter being able to cut up stuff like stone and copper blocks more easily, but they don't want that to be freely available to every type of material. And I can sort of see the logic in that, but I think it's really nice for players to discover that something is there as a quality of life feature and then just be able to use it a lot more broadly. So I would be on board with the stone cutter being able to cut wood as well.
Yeah, I think that like a cutting table, like crafting table, cutting table, I feel like that kind of rolls off the tongue and matches what Minecraft is doing. Although the stonecutter, one thing that I'm just thinking about now, it's odd that it's not a full block. Like it's a sub block kind of model as opposed to being the same height as a crafting table or something like that. And in the data pack that I used for the tables and chairs, there was I think it was a table saw or a cutting bench. I can't remember what they called it in the data pack. And it was essentially the top of the stonecutter put on a crafting table size block and had a different texture on the side. And you would use it, and the only function it had was to put out the chairs. So you would put in your logs, and then you would just choose the chair. It worked very similar to the stonecutter, as a matter of fact. And I could see something like that working out in Minecraft. I think that one of the things that I would like about something like that is because it would also work into decorative builds. Like if you wanted to build a sawmill or a table saw or something like that. Whereas right now, to do that, the stonecutter it's too low or too high. Like it doesn't quite fit in the way that blocks work in Minecraft, to have it like the table saw blade would be like just above the surface of what your table is, and it doesn't work like that right now with the stonecutter. I had to do something custom for that in West Hill. So I think there's room for having a block for cutting wood and have it also be something that could be decorative and used in other ways too. Because I mean, Minecrafters come up with all kinds of different ways to use the functional block as a decorative building block, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think there's potential there in the future. And another thing we wanted to talk about this week, another thing that I think has potential, is bugs. And we're talking here about mites and monsters. We're talking about the spiders, silverfish, arthropods, as the enchantment at least calls them. But is there room for more insect life in Minecraft? I've been thinking about this now that we have this emphasis on the baby mobs, and we've obviously seen a lot of revisions to those, but the actual group of mobs has stayed largely the same. I'm kind of curious if Minecraft needs more insects, not just to justify the existence of the Bane of Arthropods enchantment, but to add a little bit more life and a bit more ecosystem to the game. So I was doing a little bit of research into this. I was thinking about it in terms of real-world application and how it sort of makes sense to add bugs to Minecraft. And insect life, at least according to estimates that I was able to find through the sort of biomass article on Wikipedia, says insect life is, a large amount of the animal biomass on Earth, and it's estimated that the biomass of ants alone adds up to a greater amount than humans. So obviously there are a ton more ants. The ratio of ants to people is pretty high, but of course, collectively, there are enough ants that they actually outnumber people in terms of the scale of us as well. And so potentially Minecraft could use a few more bugs just to fill out an ecosystem in a way that feels a little bit more realistic as far as a natural world goes. I think bugs are fairly recognizable. From a young age, kids get interested in the insect world. They contribute differently to ecosystems, and they could fill some interesting roles, I think, in Minecraft. They are also a little bit of a change from the natural stuff Mojang typically adds, because they are things we don't often think twice about killing. Where obviously lately they've been adding endangered species to Minecraft, or they've been adding stuff that sort of feels interesting for an ecosystem, but the goal is not to kill it to get hold of drops. They've been cautious about incentivizing players to kill real-world animals unless they're things that we farm for livestock. And, bugs are in some cultures food. There are places that have, an emphasis on crickets providing the source of protein and, snacking bugs and that kind of thing. There's a lot more of that in different cultures globally that could even add an element of representation to Minecraft if that's something that they're looking for. So as I was thinking about it and broadening my knowledge on this topic, I thought bugs actually seem like more and more logical of a fit for adding new features to Minecraft, in my opinion.
I think it would be really interesting, and I like the idea, and certainly the point of having them be something where players could kill them or combat them or use them for drops or farm them without really the same level of, I guess, moral compass deviation that
it's a bit more guilt-free is how I would put it.
Yeah, guilt-free. Thank you. Yeah. I like that idea, and especially for me, because when I was looking at this and thinking about this, I would rather see larger fantasy versions of bugs, and there's lots to pull from. If you look up like what are the largest insects on the planet, and do a quick Google image search, like sometimes you're like, that's got to be AI, and then you dig in, you're like, oh, that's not. Nope, that's a beetle the size of someone's hand. Like that, they are wild. And some of them look right out of sci-fi, and I feel like you could probably, or fantasy, you could probably put them into Minecraft and have them work pretty, really well as far as both passive and aggressive. Like I feel like something, I think his name was Dim, the big beetle from A Bug's Life that everybody rides like a helicopter. Like he was lovable, but he was the size of a bus. Like something like that, like something the size of a sniffer that's a beetle would be really, really cool. Or something more aggressive, something that's going to be something the player has to contend with as far as a challenge. The thing that I think would hold Mojang up is their, I guess, willingness or stubbornness about giving anything knees. So even spiders in Minecraft have straight legs. And so for a lot of these insects to work, especially for my idea for larger ones, like fantasy level size bugs, I feel like they would need to have some sort of knee component for it to feel creepy crawly, for it to have that kind of aspect to it, unless it was a flying insect. And my comment there is like, well, if you're going to do something flying, I feel like bees are great because bees are mostly passive unless you anger them, and then they have to come in and physically sting you. But if you've got flying insects in Minecraft, they're really hard to hit, they're small, or if they're big, if they've got a ranged attack like a skeleton, then it's going to be really annoying. Like you're going to have to carry a bow with you depending on where they spawn. If they attack you at range, then you will have to use a range to get them. Or if they come down to sting you or something like that, then you'd have to hit them while they're down. No one likes phantoms that I've heard of. So like having flying insects that are aggressive in the game might not fly that well in terms of, being received by the player base. So I think there's a weird line to walk between, insects. I mean, we call them bugs because they bug you, right? And so to have something in the game that is essentially a pest in real life, like how do you balance that and make it useful or interesting or not annoying for the player? So there's some balancing there that I think would be tricky, but I mean, I think it's doable. I think there's some fun ideas, especially with the larger bugs. Like I think if you made something like a horse-sized bug in Minecraft, I think that could be something to explore for sure.
You've played a little bit more Hytale than I have. Did you encounter the flying creatures in the deserts that like spit poison at you? Those felt like the most annoying thing to deal with from just because of the ranged options you have available to you in Hytale. And I do think that would be something that, I wouldn't be too keen on there being flying hostile mobs, considering that people already dislike phantoms a great deal, and I think having any kind of ranged attack would be kind of a nightmare. But it could be an interesting challenge depending on where they're implemented. Obviously, like there's a variety of options here, and I think that's one of the things that appeals to me about the bug idea as well, is that they have such a broad variety of habitats that you could bring them to specific biomes, or they could be something more global, and depending on the insect that you're adding, it makes a good deal of sense. Like there could be some that prefer certain types of trees or prefer to live in damper environments like caves, and maybe if there's something buzzing around a cave instead of buzzing around on the surface, then at least it has a limited range that it can fly, so potentially that means it's a little bit easier to handle in that kind of, closer system. But there are even a lot of arthropods that are in the Earth's oceans. Like there's a lot of stuff that we would consider creepy crawly, but really falls into ocean life as a category. And so that could be another interesting expansion to ocean life in future. You're exploring a coral reef and you find something that's more like a sea slug kind of thing. Like there's a variety of things, whether it's invertebrates or like things with exoskeletons and stuff. There's a decent chunk of them that do live in the water. So we're not even ruling out oceans as a potential place for bugs like this to exist. And if they aren't hostile mobs, then potentially they can be a neat aesthetic addition. We already have fireflies. I was wondering about adding things like butterflies and moths to the table, because they could be fixed around specific plants in the same way to how fireflies work. But if you add like a butterfly bush, for example, that's the common name of a genus that's Buddleia, I think. We have one in our back garden, and the bees and butterflies absolutely love it when it blooms in spring and summer. And butterflies are also pollinators. So let's say you had a butterfly bush, it could add butterflies as particles, but maybe as a passive effect, just in like a 3x3 centered on the bush, it could help pollinate the crops around it. And that means that you're not necessarily interacting with the bees pathfinding in order to pollinate your crops, but if you just sacrifice a little bit of space to put one of these bushes in, maybe you get your wheat to grow slightly faster as a result, or something like that. There could be little mechanical things that even as a single block, it could add some sort of functionality. And as far as the aesthetics go, I think adding a couple of like small particle-based butterfly creatures that don't necessarily have any hitboxes or collision. They're not like involved in mechanics where you can like catch them in a net and put them in a jar necessarily. But you can have stuff like that maybe adds a little bit more life and color to situations like a flower forest or a plains biome.
I like the idea of a butterfly bush. I had butterflies down as a potential idea as well. And the same idea, like having it be like particle effects, like the fireflies. But I'm wondering, like, especially with something like a butterfly bush, that has the potential to give, landscape and builders another bush to play with that's flowers on it. It's got some different colors, whatever. But if it also came with butterflies all the time, maybe that's not something that you want. One of the ideas that I had was either with a new plant/bush or the combination of several, like maybe the butterflies only show up if you've got two of them within range of one another. Like you have to kind of get enough together to attract the butterflies. Or it could be something like, well, having one flower in your garden doesn't attract butterflies, but having like a variety of three, like if you had 3 different Minecraft flowers all close together, that would attract butterflies. Like that could be a fun way to do it too, making sure that people say, oh, well, I have player control. Like if I don't want the butterflies, then I can just make sure I don't have 3 different flowers in a row, or I don't have 3 of those bushes touching one another. If I use 2, no butterflies. If I use 3, then I get butterflies. But I like the idea of pollinating too. Like I think that's a cool effect. And we've got crops that grow. It would be really interesting if we ever get plants like flowers that would bloom or be more in bloom and less in bloom, like something that would change over time. Like you're going to get roughly the same look, but as you get more butterflies, maybe the butterfly bush has more flowers on it as opposed to less. I'm thinking about the flowering azalea bush. Like maybe if that had twice as many flowers on it with butterflies around or not. Like little things like that could be really fun to play with. And I find that those kind of things add a lot to Minecraft being so static. Particles like fireflies, the particles that come from spore blossoms, butterflies, bees, like those kind of movements really add a lot of life to what is otherwise static Minecraft builds. And so I'm definitely on board with something like butterflies.
Yeah, I think it would be really fun to have like a bit more of the, like you said, the flowers kind of blooming and closing. We have that already with the eye blossom. And so maybe that could be something that it doesn't necessarily have to be added to pre-existing flowers, but like if they're adding in a butterfly bush to, promote this sort of particle effect butterfly as well, like there could be some behavior there that could be really fun. And I do like the idea of like you plant a butterfly bush, but it's only if you have other flowers around it that you actually start to get the particles showing up. You get stuff like that with how pale oak works with the rustling, creaking sounds that it makes. It has to be a combination of pale oak and pale moss to do that. So there's already these kind of like little multi-block, almost like Easter eggs to combining different materials and different flora that can work really well, I think. There's other ideas I had, like ants, for example. They have a very structured, very orderly routine. Their movements can feel a little bit random when they're just sort of walking around on the path outside, but a lot of the time they are following fixed paths that have been trod by other ants, and they'll leave kind of markings to let the other ants know, go this way. There's a really great, I think it's in one of the DreamWorks, or like it's in A Bug's Life or something like that, where like one of these trails gets disrupted and one of the ants immediately goes, "I'm lost," when it's like clearly like following something, and then a drop of water lands in front of it and suddenly it changes like the route of it. But yeah, like the fact that ants kind of work in this colony, that they're kind of going back and forth over time. They let other ants know where there is a source of food, and then they'll kind of collect little pieces of it. Like leafcutter ants will do stuff like this. And I think one of the criticisms of other item carrying mobs like allays and copper golems is that they lack range in terms of how far they will search for stuff, and there's a more organic way in which they search where they're often more interested in the item that is closest to them rather than remembering where they went and then going back to and from that location until that's clear and they can move on to the next objective. And so I wonder if ants could do that more reliably, since it mimics how mechanically they feel like they work in the real world. Maybe to sort of balance that, they only move a couple of items at a time because they're small. But I like the idea of, seeing ants moving around carrying, like, I'm imagining like leaf blocks or kelp or something just on their backs as they travel, and kind of moving that stuff to and fro a little bit at a time. And that could add to the more recent emphasis we've had on adding life to a system through more organic mobs and allowing for sorting systems and those kinds of things to be made using non-mechanical means, using a bit of mob AI to help you out with stuff like that.
Have you played Grounded or Grounded 2?
I have not, and that was going through my mind as a result of this, because I'm not sure what the mechanics are there for. You can probably like ride some of the bugs, and I assume
Yes.
it's a bit more like Ark Survival Evolved, where you get the dinosaurs to like harvest crops for you and stuff like that. I presume there are mechanics like that in there, but I've never had any real contact with the game myself.
I don't remember much about the crop harvesting. I don't know how far I got in that way. Those tended to be like planters in your base as opposed to like crops actually in the ground. But the ant that you get is something that you have to capture an ant egg and then raise it yourself in an incubator. And then you ride it like a mount. But it cuts down grass and then you can pick up stuff. You can use it like a horse in Minecraft where it's got like a saddlebag. So you can put different levels of like dandelion, which is like wood, or grass, which is like leaf blocks in Minecraft, and you can carry those around and then bring them back to your base to then build and do stuff with. And it increases your carrying capacity and your we'll say mining speed. It's like your tree chopping speed essentially, and brings that kind of stuff down. Also increases your traversal, like you can climb cliffs faster, you can jump farther, it had an attack, so you could deal with mobs as well, and if you dismounted, it would act like a buddy, like, so you could have like a 2-player versus PvE environment where the ant would be kind of like a tank and would like grab attention from other bugs, and then you could go and attack the bugs. But talking about Grounded 2, even the small bugs, the ones that were like the size of your foot, like the mites in Grounded 2, were gross and creepy crawly and intimidating depending on how fast they moved. So I found it funny that you're going for all the small insects and how they might be applied in Minecraft, because even if they do that, like given the size of bees, like ants would still have to be, I don't know, cat size or larger, like at least the size of an allay, if they're going to pick up, especially if they're going to pick up a block and the block item in the game in the way that an allay holds it, or how you hold an item in the game in Minecraft when another player sees you, like that the scale of the thing holding the block would have to be decent size. So be interesting to see how they might do that. Or I wonder if Minecraft could come up with their own version of an insect, like base it on an ant or base it on something in real life, but then come up with something completely new, like it's a Minecraft mite or something, and there's an ender mite in the game. Maybe there's like a grass mite or something, a stone mite. I don't know what you might use to help you sort systems, but I like the idea of moving things around like that. Like they're never going to mine for you, but if they're picking up blocks or if they're creating some sort of transition, like we use water systems right now to move blocks around, and that's great at volume if you want to use a lot, but if you really only need like a certain number of blocks to be moved, it would be kind of cool to use a chain of stone mites to do that if you only needed to have like 1 block a second moving along, and then it would sort of look like a conveyor belt. Like, I mean, people talk about having automation in Minecraft, and we had a member of our community share some create mod builds in the hangout this weekend. Having conveyor belts in Minecraft feels a little bit different than Minecraft's current aesthetic, but having a bug conveyor belt would sort of feel very Minecrafty. Like if you were using the bugs in construction and as an aid to doing stuff like that, I think that could be something that has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think there's room for it, or like you said, room for them to introduce an original mob to the game, like endermites are. I mean,
Yeah.
silverfish have a real world parallel. Obviously, spiders do with bees, but I do think there's scope for them to add something new and interesting. There are also even ways in which we have other bugs from real life that could like apply themselves to existing Minecraft mechanics. You look at the fact that insects like beetles have historically been used for dyes. Like cochineal beetles were farmed as early as the 2nd century BCE, according to what I was looking up on Wikipedia earlier. So maybe they could be another source of fabric dyes instead of flowers. And apparently, cochineal beetles are farmed on cactus. So maybe your dye farm now produces red and green. You know, there's potential for like fun little additional mechanics like that. Even like finding stuff like worms, and maybe you find a worm occasionally by like hoeing soil or like digging stuff up, or like when you're breaking grass to get wheat seeds, and then maybe adding one of those to the composter speeds up the composter like a little boost for a certain amount of time or something like that. There's maybe little overlaps in mechanics that can just add to whether it's consumables or long-term things, just having something extra useful in that. And I think there is really precedent for there being more bugs in Minecraft. I mean, Firefly bushes obviously recently have shown that adding bugs as particle effects is pretty successful. We have a Bane of Arthropods enchantment that only really makes sense to use on silverfish, spiders, and cave spiders right now. Like, you can use it to attack bees, but I think it's so circumstantial that you've come across an endermite that I don't think people are going to whip out the Bane of Arthropods sword just to deal with the fact that, you know, they have a 1 in 20 chance or something when you throw an ender pearl. We have stuff like termites were mentioned as a potential addition to savanna biomes in the Minecon Earth 2018 biome vote, and didn't make the cut, but potentially, like, if we see another enhancement to savannas in future, aside from the addition of the armadillo, maybe that's still something that could show up. And I think at the time we speculated about how they could be used to create hollow logs, and that would mean that you could run water through it or redstone through it, potentially for various uses. The other thing that I struck on while I was thinking about bugs and their relationship to existing Minecraft stuff is that Elytra, the wings that players use to glide around, are named after the wing casings of beetles. So we still don't know where those wings come from. There aren't any native end creatures that we have seen so far who use those wings, but they are found in the bow of an end ship. And so whether there is some sort of, you know, maybe extinct civilization that used them. Maybe they were used by Endermen at one point, and then they discovered teleportation was a cool way to get around and decided against it. Or maybe there are some unknown creatures out there in the end dimension that Minecraft could add in future that have yet to be discovered, and Elytra might be part of that. Obviously, right now they're repaired with phantom membrane, but if there was some other kind of wing membrane from a bug-like creature that we could use to repair Elytra as well, that's another possibility. And I think it's worth considering. There's so many little references almost to insects and arthropods existing in Minecraft already that maybe there is room for a couple more as development continues.
Right now, even though you don't see them on a multiplayer server, it's kind of cool to have different aspects of your character that look unique. And I think having something like dyes from insects or the elytra from different kinds of bugs be something that you could use to change the color of your elytra, right? Like, I think that would be really fun to be able to like go to the end and find a certain kind of bug or beetle and defeat it and get like purple dye, and then you've got purple elytra. So not only is it going to make you look cool, it's also like a badge of honor. Like, you had to go find this thing in the end, which means you had to beat the dragon and like all that kind of stuff. I mean, maybe not on a server, because of course the dragon would be beat by somebody else perhaps, but you still have to go out and retrieve it. And I think that could be a fun way to make Elytra more unique, especially if they changed the texture as well as the color. Like, if you wanted to have bug wings, if you wanted it to look more like a dragonfly, like, you can do it right now with texture packs, but that's outside the game. And I feel like having an in-game way to do that could be really, really fun. Especially if it's just an aesthetic change. It doesn't make things faster or slower. It just kind of does its thing. That could be fun to explore. I was thinking more along the lines of more aggressive mobs and things that might spice up some encounters, and trying to think about these large bugs. And I was thinking like a giant praying mantis in the jungle maybe could be kind of fun. Maybe that's something where there's a change to jungle temples to make them a little bit more challenging. Maybe they're guarded by a praying mantis or something. I don't know whether any of these kind of go into the realm of like a boss fight. I'm not thinking like nether scale. I'm thinking more, or wither scale. I'm thinking more like, the size of a bear, like a panda, like something like that could be interesting. Very camouflage heavy. If it's in the jungle, it would be tricky in that way to kind of spot it. Giant beetles, I think, could be really fun, either as transport or pets or something. A fast flying mount would be nice. I don't think they're going to be used for building because that would just undercut the gas and then no one would use it. But I like the idea of having something that you could use to move around that's got it's very often Elytra rockets are too much for how far you want to go. And I feel like having something like a flying beetle could be really fun to zip from platform to platform in a city or something like that could be really, really cool. And the nether, I was thinking things like centipedes or millipedes. I don't know how you do that in Minecraft, because if it's a long, low to the ground millipede or something like that, like how does it go up blocks? Like, does it just go up in like one block chunk at a time? And like you have one block of a 4-block millipede hanging on the edge of a platform, does like the other 3 blocks cantilever and stick out straight?
That would be cool though. Like, imagine, how shulker bullets kind of like trace a square path through the air? Like, imagine if there was a bug that moved like that and there's like its body is following the head part. Like, that would be cool looking.
It would be cool looking. And I think it would also kind of like maybe skip over the issue with knees, because you could just have a bunch of little blocks underneath the thing moving around up and down. It wouldn't necessarily have to have like a creepy crawly in the legs. The body could move. Like if it was a segmented, I had snake toys like this when I was a kid where they were segmented and you can like gravity would just kind of like have them move around. You see people 3D print stuff like this all the time these days, like dragons and snakes and things like that. Could be really, really fun. And I mean, in the nether, great. In a cave, maybe. Like, imagine if you didn't have to just look at the ground in a cave if you're caving. What if they could crawl on the ceiling? Like, you could have to be worried about potentially getting dropped on from above, which would be interesting. Or you add in the fantasy element. Like, instead of a millipede or a centipede, just a bug, what if it's like a fire centipede where you have to, maybe it comes out of the lava, maybe it's something that the striders have to deal with, or you have to deal with because it shoots fireballs. I don't know, like just stuff like that could be a little bit more fun. And I also think like when you look up centipedes, like a lot of them have a lot of horns and a lot of like kind of decorative things on them. And you could do something like that in Minecraft where it could be like, oh, if it had like red fiery horns on it and you call it a fire centipede and give it some sort of cool drop or cool ability. Maybe if it touches you, it gives you, fire damage. Like it lights you on fire if you touch it. That kind of stuff could be an interesting kind of addition. I mean, for people that don't like the nether, you're not going to like it anymore if that's the case. But yeah, those are kind of my larger ideas in terms of like what some passive and aggressive bugs might look like if they were big scale as opposed to like little creepy crawly ones.
Yeah, definitely. Like when you said praying mantises, these were brought to my attention recently. I didn't even know they were a thing, but orchid mantises are like really pretty looking. And I think there's elements here where you're talking about the camouflage thing in the jungle. You could have them really stand out if you wanted to have it a little different, right? They could be a little more pretty and sort of alien feeling in the setting, depending on where they were. But yeah, I think the animal kingdom has a lot to still offer Minecraft. Like even though it feels like we're running low on the ground in terms of like livestock and stuff like that, but there are a lot of other animals out there that could add something really unique to the game. So I think there's untapped potential there, at least. We are probably going to wrap up the podcast there, though, for the day. Thank you so much for listening. You can find more information about our show and links to some of the stuff that we've talked about today over at thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show is composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is proud to be a listener-supported podcast. If you're getting some value out of the show, why not consider putting some value back in? You can do that at patreon.com/thespawnchunks. Pledging at any of our paid tiers gets you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat. You can listen to the show live when we record it in Discord every Monday, and join our monthly hangouts where you get to share what you've been up to in Minecraft that month. We currently have 260 patrons, which is down 3 from last week. Would love to welcome in more people as we move into March. Special thanks go out to our content engineer patrons, Kinda Beald, Hunter555, Jumbo Sale, Mindtrip Media, and That Penguin Dude. Annual memberships are also available on our Patreon page. You can save 10% by supporting the Spawn Chunks for a full year in advance. So consider that if you head over to patreon.com/thespawnchunks.
Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. It's free. Just tell a friend where they can find the Spawn Chunks. We are the Spawn Chunks on social media. New episodes are available on Mondays on your favorite podcasting platform, including video versions on Spotify and on YouTube. Email the Spawn Chunks at spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. The RSS feed is linked on the spawnchunks.com, and the patron-only RSS feed is linked on the Patreon page. That's where you get the render distance, the extended version of the podcast.
My name is Jonny, but online I go by Pixelriffs. You can find most of what I do at youtube.com/pixelriffs, where the Minecraft Survival Guide is in its 3rd season, and Gigs D&D Session 2 just got uploaded there as well. I currently stream 3 days a week on Twitch, where I do behind-the-scenes work for my YouTube series and a little bit of D&D campaign prep now. I'm the voice of the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search, and aside from that, I'm at Pixelriffs on both Blue Sky and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
I will point you towards the Citadel Cafe episode 502, which was published yesterday. Over the weekend, we talked about The Muppet Show and Predator Badlands, as well as a few other things on the podcast. It was a really fun conversation. Lots of nerdy stuff going on over there. I also stream on Twitch Tuesday through Saturday, mornings during the week and afternoon on Saturday. And right now, as I mentioned, I'm focusing on the Command Center, and that's twitch.tv/JoelDuggan.
Thanks for visiting the Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite, but don't let that bug you.